Firstly, welcome to everybody. It's been a few months since we've had our last user group. And when we reignited this Southern Africa Tableau user group, Tor was actually our first presenter. So good to have you back, Tor. I'm sure some of you will remember you from your Tableau tips. So just to remind everybody, we are the Southern Africa Tableau user group. So emphasis here on Southern Africa. We do obviously have a lot of people we work with in the likes of Zimbabwe and Namibia and Botswana. So if you know anybody in those regions, please feel free to invite them. We really want to try and drive and grow this community. I think it has grown in leaps and bounds in the last sort of year, and I think special thanks to Andre, who's also on the call for driving it from the Tableau perspective. But I'm not going to go through the mission and who we are. I think we've all seen that. But really, it's just to emphasize the importance of coming together as a community. Just in terms of the host, so my name's Craig. I work at a company called Kiris, and Suzanne has actually gone on maternity leave. Flora, is that right? And Flora is going to be taking over for the next sort of 4 or so months. Is that right, Flora?
That's right. So yeah, for the next 4 or 5 months, I'll be taking over from Suzanne, who's on maternity leave, like you said.
Yeah. Brilliant. So really what a host means is we just try and ensure that we can find speakers, coordinate with the speakers, hear feedback from the community. So if you've got any feedback for us, please bring that forward. We want to hear what you want to hear. So I've got a little feedback form at the end, so please just spend 2 minutes at the end to fill that in. And if you want to present, please also come forward. We're always looking for people who would like to present. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Tor. So like I mentioned, Tor did speak at one of our first sort of reignited Tableau user groups. Tor, I'm going to hand over to you to introduce yourself. I think you've got a lot to cover. So thanks a lot for doing it.
Thank you. I'll start by sharing my screen and go to presentation mode. I can even begin with a tip already. If you press F7 instead of that button, you will then get the presentation mode in Tableau Desktop. So hello, thank you for having me back. This is, of course, a beautiful AI-generated action figure of me, where you can see that I love football. So I have Liverpool from England is my favorite team. Lillestrøm from Norway is my Norwegian team. I do spend too much time gaming, and I love a Norwegian chocolate called Quick Lunch. I actually have the biggest collection in the world of those wrappers. Note, it's the only one. So whenever I do training, in-person training, I always hand out Quick Lunch. So if you get me to somewhere in Southern Africa, you will get Quick Lunch as well. So that's a unique selling point, I guess. But thank you. My name is Tore Levensen, as you heard. I'm a Tableau Jedi. I've been working with Tableau since version 7, when Field Maps was introduced. That's back in 2012. I'm a five-time Tableau ambassador, user group ambassador, and a first time this year Tableau visionary as well. So I run the Norwegian Tableau user group. So if you don't have any plans on the 20th of November, you can join a Nordic super tug, which will be, of course, both in person and virtual, where we have the Flerich twins as a keynote, and we have a speaker for all 5 countries as well, in English. So that should be quite interesting.
Sorry, Tor. Just a note, the 2 twins agreed to join our user group in February. So just a spoiler alert.
That's good. They're amazing. They do have a lot of fun stuff to present. I also run the virtual data plus maps user group. We just had a session a couple of weeks ago. And we do also meetings every quarter. So if you're interested in anything that's related to maps, spatial data, then that's a good group to join. So I'll show you some tips today about maps, and you will get also a QR code a bit later for that Data Plus Maps user group if you would like to sign up. So I work at a company called Crayon Consulting, part of Crayon Group, which I understood from Craig that also are in South Africa. They are throughout the world, actually. So that's interesting. But I'm in Bergen, Norway, on the west coast. Before I begin, I just want to thank, well, a lot of people, including the twins, or the triplets now. If you saw them in TC this year, they now also have a puppet called Keith. So there are 3 people. But I'm going to share as many tips as I can squeeze in for this presentation. Some of them are mine, some of them are inspired or made by other people. Some of them you can see on this list. And that's the beauty of the Data Fam. We are sharing, we are doing a lot of cool stuff that people, for some reason, figure out how can Tableau do that, or why is Tableau doing that, which is pretty cool. And this summer I do this tiny Tableau tip more or less weekly, which I've done for some years now. But this summer I have had a lot of guest hosts that I have presented. And I see Syed is here as a guest as well, and he presented. I was publishing this, was it already? Yeah, on Wednesday. Well, yesterday. A pretty cool way of presenting user guides in Tableau. So please check that out. But let's start with some tips. And I do have a lot of sheets, as you can see down here already. And the first tip is, especially if you open up a workbook that has a lot of sheets in it, and every time you click on a new sheet or a dashboard, it needs to refresh or load. So we can do a quick tip down here on the right-hand side. There's 3 different ways of presenting our sheets. By default, it's the one all the way on the right-hand side, but we can switch to this one where we have the film strip. So you basically see all our sheets and a preview. But if it hasn't been loaded, we can then right-click and refresh all the thumbnails. That means that it will go through all of the different sheets. As you see now, it will compute and do all kinds of stuff, but you do it one time instead of doing it every time you click through. So hopefully this won't take too long. Now we'll see that we do have stuff in all of these. And then you also have the overview down here, the sheet sorter. This is everything that I'm going to show you today from an overview point. You see all of these. You can drag and drop and move them around if you want to, or if you need to go to one specific one, you just double click on it and you go to that particular one. So that's 3-in-1 tips there. So let's begin with this one. We are now looking at a box and whisker plot of some sales for different subcategories, and we see that there's a lot of circles in here. I have done a few things in here by changing the opacity a bit, because then if you don't do that, then they are overlapping. If we change the opacity, we'd then manage to see that, well, there's a whole bunch of these over here in machines and paper. It's really difficult to see. So what can we do to make this a bit easier? One thing is to go, if I just click on paper, for example, see on the tooltip that we have 1,200 items, and we can't really see that. If you go to copiers, we have 70, so that's not as many. So now we can do something called jittering. So we can leverage a function, and I can just double click in here. You've probably seen that if you double click on a dimension or a measure, it's basically just a calculation. So I can do an ad hoc calculation, which is called random. And the interesting thing about random is that it's supported by Tableau, but you don't. It's not documented. So you don't see it on the IntelliSense, but you see it turns purple and everybody's happy. So if I do random in here, it will basically give me a number between 0 and 1 for each individual dot in here, each and every order ID and customer. Then we see that for the paper, we still have the 1,200, but we see the distribution a bit more easily. And we can see more of this, this data. It looks a bit weird to have random repeated multiple times in here, so I would just get rid of this header. And just to pay attention to this paper one, if I just keep only that one, you will see these are the 1,200 dots, and that wouldn't be as easy to spot if we just look at like this. So this is the random function. And what if we combine the random function with also index? Index is a different function, but it will also give us some values, counting the number of customers from 0 to however many we have. So I'll drag this first, the sum of sales, to size. So now all circles have, the larger the circle, the more sales we have in here. And then I'm going to create an index function in here. So index, you see that this is actually documented in Tableau. So I'm just going to do index. Index is a table calculation. That's something we can see by the triangle in here. So that's a visual indicator that we have a table calculation. Looks a bit weird, or it looks like it's, I don't know, growing over time, or it's doing something. But that's the tip always with table calculations. It's very easy to right click and add those, but always remember the scope and direction. So I would like to not do this table across, because you see that it's just getting index higher and higher number across here, but I'm going to do this per customer name. When I do this, I get this jittered bar chart, and that looks a bit more fancy, I guess, than an ordinary bar chart. The circles indicates the size of the sale. The higher the bar, you see that it's higher on the index level, means that we have how many customers do we have in here. So roughly 470 for this one. We have 650 customers in binders. We also see then the distribution a bit more easily. This one, this is, I think it's an old classic one, but we're looking at delivery mode on the axis over here over multiple years, and we have average discount, that's in percentage. We have quantities that goes up to 7,000-ish, and then we have sales that goes to 400,000. By default, when we put something on color, we will get one line or one range of colors. So we see the spread from 0 to 400,000. And the zeros are, of course, the percentages, which is 0.17. So we can't really see that there's a difference between 17, 16, 14. But we do have, on the marks card, we have the measure values on color. If we right click on it, we can then use separate legends. When we do that, we get 3 legends on the right-hand side. Then we can see that there is a variation between 12 and 18%. So there's a distribution range there. We see that quantity has its own, and we see that sales has its own. And the benefit of having 3 of these is that you can go in and say edit colors and change all of these to different type of colors as well. But just be a bit careful. If you have multiple measures and you have multiple colors, it looks more of a, I don't know, an art piece than something that is visual best practice. So the idea is don't use colors just because you can, but separate them so you can see them individually. And this is actually a tip or something I realized. I've been using Tableau for 12, 13 years. And this is something I didn't know until last week when I was at the client. And I was trying to do something with the measure names on filter. And then they said, maybe you could try this. And yes, I could. So let's see, this is the same visualization, but we do have a filter on measure names. And you know that if you add in a filter on anything else, like delivery mode or first class, like this, and you have, especially if you have a color ledger, you can drag and drop and move the order, or you can go in here and rearrange which one should be first and last. But for measure names, there's no dragging or dropping or sorting. So I was told, and I tried, and it worked. If I go to my measure names, I right click, and then I go and do my default properties. I can then go and do a default sorting. So it's alphabetic by default. If you do it manually, you can do whatever in which order you want in here. And then it will also change in your filter. So if you have some measures that not alphabetically is more important than others, just use this default in here, and it will change in the filter on the right-hand side. Another thing when it comes to measure names is that this is really annoying that I do have now count of people and returns and everything else in my measure names filter when I only use these 3. So I can't go in and say, use only relevant values or something like this that you can do in other filters. So how can we fix this? Well, if I do take a copy of or duplicate my data set, so now I have the Superstore, I have a copy of this. I'm going to replace my data source. So in just this sheet, replace only current worksheet. I'm going to be using this new data set. It's still the same, but just a copy. You see that it's switching over here, so we can now get the blue tick bar. And this data set is only now using these 3. So I can go over to my data pane. I can hide all unused fields. You see that I now only end up with the ones that are being used. And then I can filter between these. It's a bit more maintenance, of course, when you have copies over here. But as long as it's a copy, it's still pointing to the original data source that will be updated. Now I'm going to switch over to Tableau Public, or it could be Tableau Cloud or Server, because there are some things that you can only do on server that you can't do on desktop, which is really annoying. We all know that there's way more things you can do on desktop than on server or cloud, but there's even stuff the other way around, which is, yeah, I find that a bit annoying that the Tableau hasn't included that. So let's switch over to this one. It's the same workbook in here. And I have this beautiful dashboard. I mean, it's amazing, like, right? The best visual practice from A to B. But that's not the point. The point here is that, first of all, if you switch from the dashboard pane to layout, you can use the T. So just remember Tableau or Tore or something. T to switch between these on the, that's a keyboard shortcut. And then we have the hierarchy down here. So I'm just going to open up this one. You know that when you're building anything in Tableau and you're adding whatever you do into a dashboard, there's so many containers that it's really annoying that Tableau adds as many as they do. But you don't need to end up having 15 horizontal, 15 vertical containers. You can right-click and you can rename these dashboard items. Luckily now I'm on my own computer. Last week, or was it 2 weeks ago, I was doing a presentation when I ended up having to borrow a German laptop, and everything, all the menus were in German. But it says rename dashboard items. So you can call them whatever you want, like I've done down here. So it also has a proper meaning for you when you organize these. But this you can also do on desktop. What you can't do on desktop is that if I now figure out that this particular sheet should be inside of this sheet, which is also inside of a container, if you double click on it, you see that it's inside of this container. And if I double click, we see that this is also inside of another container. You all know this hassle trying to fit that exactly the sweet spot of where should I put it, and then you don't hit it, you undo, you try again, you try again. Oh, that's so annoying. On server, cloud, public, we can take any sheet or any container, we can drag and drop like this. So you can hit it exactly where you want. And that's a lifesaver, especially if you want that pixel perfect. I do like to plan ahead and build those containers on desktop as well. Sometimes it doesn't end up where you want to. So I start in desktop, publish it to server, and then I do those tiny adjustments. So you see that I can also do that with the entire container like this and move them around. I'm not saying that this one looks better, but this is the idea of it, at least. Another thing that's pretty cool, I think that that works on desktop, that doesn't work on server, that doesn't work on desktop. That's the size slicer. So you can do this on desktop as well, but you don't have this percentage number. So if you want to make sure that it's aligned across multiple sheets, you can actually go in here, write in the percentage, and don't try to find that exact spot. So that's another thing that doesn't work on desktop yet. Another thing that I also observed the other day that I thought that was only on desktop, on server, but it works both ways. That came in 2025.2. If you right click on any pill in your sheet, let's see if it actually did work in here. There we go. You can then find in data pane. So if you have a big data source, you can then click on subcategory. It will highlight it on the left-hand side. So that's something that Tableau released but didn't talk about, I think, or mention anywhere. So that's something I just discovered the other day. Another thing that's pretty new, you know that I'm now working on sample EU Superstore. That is a table or a data source that might have a join or have some relationship. If we go to this worksheet menu, there's something called View Data Model. That's also fairly new. If I click on that one, then I get a new window, and you see this is the actual data model behind sample EU Superstore that's built on this. But then my question is, am I using all these tables in this particular view? You can click on this, hide unused tables. If I do, I see that this particular view is only using orders. So this is pretty new released feature, I think. Another thing, if I go to this, there we go, this one, a couple of shortcuts. I love using keyboard shortcuts as well. The F7 only works on, we don't have F7 in server, but we do have it on desktop. But you see in the background, there's a grid. Now there's no grid, there's a grid. So that's the G button. If you press the G button, you get the grid. It's only in preview mode or in design mode. It doesn't show when you publish, but this is for getting that pixel perfect dashboard. You can even go to dashboard and then change the size of the grid in here if you would like to have them bigger or smaller as well. And then if you have floating objects, you can use the arrows. If I'm just going to select it first, you can move with the arrows 1 pixel at a time, or shift arrows to move 10 pixel at a time. So a few shortcut tips in there. The second, or the last thing rather, if I go to, this one is now empty. I've built this amazing dashboard. As you can see, I'm now selecting this container that contains the title and a beautiful image. You can go to this triangle. You can copy a dashboard item. It can't contain a sheet with data, but can contain any other objects, text objects or URL objects or images. Copy dashboard item. We go to this new dashboard, Control V, crossing our fingers, and we see that I get the container, I get the picture, I get the label. So you don't have to regenerate all of this for each and every dashboard sheet you have in your view. This also works for works on desktop. I did mention that I co-host the Data Plus Maps user group. So this is the QR code for that. Please sign up so you will be attending in future sessions. We are planning one before Christmas. We have now more than 500 members, and we started last year, so we're quite happy about that. But also we know that people love maps, so I think that was overdue. So I'll show you a few tips. Can't remember if I showed these last year, so if you have seen them, you can get a repeat. If you haven't seen them, then you will see them now. So we're looking at maps, some European maps. We see this is Norway. This is where I live. And if I also would like to look at the data for now, I think I have. Let me just see if I have now hidden some fields in here. No, sorry, they are location. If I now drill down for country, region to state, you have the filled maps, but then we get the city, we get these dots, right? It's not a filled map. And that's, I might want to have a combination of these. So this is where map layers come in. We have the filled map on country. I drag in city. I don't drag it into detail anywhere on label, but I put it on this new marks layer, meaning that I have 2 layers in my map, one with the countries, and then since Tableau is from the US and is so self-centered, it thinks that all of these cities are in the US. You can see Cologne, Zubreda, and you have Sandnes, that's very close to me, and you have Oslo, the capital of Norway. They actually exist in the US, in this state, but it's not where it should be. That's because I only have city on level detail in here. So if I put in country as well, you see that the circles are moving where they should be. We know that the Americans are trying to take over Greenland and everything else, so we have to be careful now. So now I have 2 different levels. The cities, I'm just going to make these black so we see them pop out a bit, maybe even add a tiny little border. So we see those circles, and then maybe I'm going to put in the sales or something on size in here. But you see when I hover over, all the countries are flickering, and it's a bit difficult to hit, especially in Norway, because the sales are so small. You can, of course, increase the circles a bit, but that also makes them bigger anywhere else. So this is a nice tip when you have multiple layers and you don't need the map to be clickable. We can go to this tiny triangle. Every time you see a triangle in Tableau, that means there is a menu. So I can disable the selection, meaning that you see that it doesn't flicker when I hover over the countries, but it flickers cities. And there's, see, Bergen. This is where I am at the moment. So that's one thing we can do. If I also add in a filter, because I often work with clients from Norway, so we are only interested in sales or data from Norway. That's obvious. And this is good, but why do we see those damn Swedes and Finns in here? I don't like them. And I don't have data there. I only would like to see Norway. Now we have the benefit of having a filled map. So the map is filled. We have the background map in here. We can go to map. On the menu, we can go to background layers. And then I can get rid of Sweden and Finland and everyone else. And only look at Norway, and it's still interactive, and you can zoom and do everything else. Of course, it doesn't help now to add in whatever other layers in here, because those are washed out. So if you do it like, you can of course just do it a bit more tiny than that you have originally, but I like to just focus on one country or one region at a time. Another one in here, same data, and we have the same circles, but you see, for example, London. Luckily, I have this opacity so that I can see that there is some smaller sales around as well. And if I zoom in, it doesn't make any difference. But at the moment, if I'm not interested in these specific values, more of where do we have the most sales, we can also change from we can't use the field map on cities, we use the circles normally, but we can also change to density. So if I do that, you see that we get the like a fire going on in Europe of where do we have the most or least sales. We still see that we have something in Bergen. It's not as much. And then you can adjust the intensity in here if you want to, change the opacity, change the color as well that fits with your data. And then the fun thing that you can do in here as well, it's not very easy to follow data over time, but if I drag in the order date, I'm going to switch this to look at for each and every quarter. Can't remember how many years I have. And now we get the player here. So we can see data, how it's changing over time. Because I put the quarter of order data on pages. So this is now animation. So if I press play, you see that how the data is changing over time. You can increase or decrease the speed, and you can do multiple stuff as well. Of course, now I can't remember which one was the hotspot in the beginning and in the end, but you can see a change over time at least. And then this is more of a fun thing. Now you can see where all the countries are. You can see in the background Norway, Finland as well. But have you ever tried to get rid of latitude and longitude just for the heck of it? Then you get no map in the background, but you still get all the shapes of all the countries. So now we can have a quiz at work. Which countries are which in here? And you see that if I drill down from country to region or even to states, keeping the color on country, you get now the different states as well for all our data. I think I need to make it a bit smaller size so you can get all of them. So that's just more a fun tip instead of any practical one, I guess. One tiny one more on maps in here, and that is where if you would like to have some grid lines in the background, if you have some kind of the not latitude, longitude, or in the view. This is not necessarily showing the exact latitude, longitude, but if you need some grid lines to put in what is it called, different areas of the map. You need to do some formatting. So every time you need to format anything, that's a general tip. Just right click on whatever you're going to format and then go to format. So since I'm going to format the map, I'm going to right click, and then I'm going to go to grid lines. And then for rows, I'm going to add in some red dots over there. And I'm going to do the same for columns. I'm going to add in some red dots. And then you have a grid in the background. And then maybe you have some squares that are different regions or something. Fortunately, you can't adjust where they end up, but they will end up in the map. And then I'm going to talk about order of the pills. It does makes a point, or it's important to where you put the pills or in which order they are, or in which order you put stuff into Tableau. So we see this dual axis chart. This is, by the way, the visualization that made me use Tableau in 2012, because I was trying to make this particular type of visualization with all the tools I had available in the company I worked for. But the boss at the time said, when I didn't manage to do it because they couldn't do it, he said, download this Excel on speed. It's called Tableau, he said. I did install it. I did connect to the data, and then 10 minutes later, I made a dual axis. But we see that the line is behind the bars. And we see the sales on the left-hand side, we see profit on the right. We could all, of course, just change the order of these two. Then the line is in front, but then we have sales on the right instead of the left. So if I would like to keep that, I can then either go into the profit one, which is the bar. We can see that on the marks card. It's you see the hint or visual indicator of a bar and a line. So I can go and say the color should be, or the opacity should be a bit like this. Then you can have a bit see-through. So then you see it like this. Or you could right-click on the axis and just move marks to back. Then you keep the axes where they should be, and we're just moving the order of the data. Another one, we are looking at some sales again for different regions. We see that the central region is the biggest one, that's the blue. The north region is the second biggest, where United Kingdom is the biggest one inside of that one. If I now also add in order date to label, we still see that central is the biggest one, the blue one. And we see that France is the biggest one, but 2023 is bigger than 2024, 22, 21. And then we have Germany, then we have Austria, and so on. But if you pay attention now, that if I drag year in front of country, we are now looking at 2024. That's bigger. And inside of 2024, we have Germany, and then we have 2021, 23, 22, etc. So the order matters on the marks card as well. Of course, these visualizations are a bit frustrating sometimes, because where is Norway in all of this, for example? So we could either right-click and show a highlighter, so that when I do say Norway in here, I can highlight Norway. Or if you just click on any tooltip and you see that when it's underlined, it does that on dimensions. I can highlight United Kingdom, I can highlight the North, I can highlight 2024 as well. So that's an easy way of getting some insights. If that doesn't work on your visualization, make sure that on the tooltip, allow selection by category is selected. Because if it isn't, then it's not working. You see that there's no, well, I'm not sure if I unclicked it actually, because it still works. So I think that I didn't say okay in my tooltip. Another one in here, I'm going to change this, use the show me to create some packed bubbles. Just make sure that we get everything in the entire view. So we see everything in here. Now also going to put in the customer name to detail. So now we have one dot for each and every customer in here. This is not visual best practice again. This is more the test that you do. Which number can you see in here if you're colorblind? Is it 41? Is it 20? I have no idea, but there is no number at the moment. If I now add country region to color, we can either drag it from here like this, or we can just select it from here as well. But I'm just going to drag it in there. So now we see that I have a country region on color, and I have one dot for each and every customer, but it's pretty unorganized. So if I change the order again, like this, now I have the different regions organized together as like circles in here, and then we have the different customers as well. But you see that we can't have, or normally we can't have two colors on the same on the marks cards. If I drag in customer name now on color, you see that, well, also my table calculation doesn't work, but it replaces the country region. So the trick here is to just click on the visual indicator, switch to color, and then we actually are getting the country region, which is orange, and then it goes from light to dark orange for each and every customer. So again, this is just showing you a couple of tips when it comes to order of operations, or order of the pills, and this color one. Don't create these visualizations, because these are beautiful to put on the wall, but it doesn't give you too much information, unfortunately. I also put in order ID in here, then you really have 5,000 dots in here. That is beautiful. I'm going to switch over to a dashboard. This is some Spotify data. And you see that this is all the different streams that the different artists have done. I'm just going to randomly have highlighted a artist. She's from Norway, that's why. So if I click on Aurora, you see that I go to the web page, and then I can listen to a few seconds of that song. But why do I want to go outside of Tableau to listen to music when I can do it inside of Tableau, right? So I do have the URL in here, and then I can go down here and add in a web page. And then just to show that this is a web page, this is just randomly and a web page I'm putting in here. And I'm human, I think. Let's see if this works. If it doesn't work, it's not that important. But it's fun for me because whenever it loads, no, it doesn't work. It looks like. So it doesn't believe me that I'm a human. The idea of this web page, this is the Norwegian pension fund, and I was going to show you how much money we have in the bank. Just to be cocky, since I'm from Norway. Sorry about that. You can check it out, nbim.no. So if I don't do anything in here, it's empty. If I now go to this one, Tableau will automatically, if I manage to, where did it go? You see it now on the right-hand side instead. I didn't get, I'm just gonna need to have Aurora in here otherwise. And then you can see if you can hear. I'm not saying that you very often are going to play music inside of Tableau, but this is a nice way of using this URL embedded object. So you don't have to go outside of Tableau if you have like a CRM system that you are looking at customers, and I would like to look at that customer's information, for example, or look up a product. So let's go back here.
That was very cool, too.
Yeah, nice music as well.
Yeah.
You know that there's a lot of stuff you can build in by looking at Show Me, right? So if I go in here and if I click on horizontal bar, just going to open it again because it was a bit, well, it doesn't show down here. I think that my screen is a bit weird. Let's see if I can, yeah. It is supposed to show you, if you want to create a bar chart, you need to have this amount of measures or dimensions, right? So if you do stuff like this, you can then go over to your data source, and then you can select something, maybe holding the control key to select multiple things, and then it will when you then click on anything in here, I think this has crashed somehow, so I'm just going to create a new sheet. Control plus M, that's creating a new sheet next to the one that you already have. Let me just try again. If I go to Show Me and I select something in here, does it actually work? No, so my Show Me has crashed. So just believe me, you can click on stuff in here. You probably have tried it as well. But you also know that this doesn't show you all the different charts that are available, right? You can, of course, go to these extensions and download and build. Just going to show you one that I find interesting, that I use quite some time. And if you put country, region, or a dimension on text, you only get the text. You go from automatic to text, even though it does say text on the automatic, but this is important. And then we drag any measure that we have and put that on size, and we get the word cloud, for example. So this is one of those charts that you can build that's not part of Show Me. If I now also put something on color, because the idea was when you're doing something from the Show Me, that was supposed to be my plan, but you see that it doesn't work for some strange reason in here. Because the Show Me will put something on color, something on size, something on columns and rows. But if you are uncertain that is this the perfect fit, then you can right click. Go into, if I don't now remember where it was, because now everything, you see that all my menus are not going. There we go. Go to the analysis menu. You can go to cycled fields. It will basically take those fields that you have, wherever it is, and it will cycle it through on color, size, and labels, and see, does this one work better? So it's just a shortcut instead of dragging and dropping. So I showed you this one, or I can go back to this one, the last one thing that you could do. Now I put segment on color, right? So there's United Kingdom is here multiple times because it has multiple segments. So instead of doing that, we can also put columns on, segment either on columns or rows, depending on how your data is organized. This is a way of showing small multiples. So now we see each and every segment for in a separate in a separate chart as well. So we don't need always to squeeze everything into the same view. We can also use these small multiples by adding a dimension onto columns or rows. There's a lot of shortcuts in Tableau, a lot of keyboard shortcuts. I do like to drag and drop, of course, but there is a lot of shortcuts that we can use, as you can see in here. One is, of course, when we're just dragging in an order date and I would like to look at something, then you need to right-click and then find the correct one, right? Which one should I use? Which combination? So a different way of doing that is to right drag. So instead of clicking with your left mouse button and drag, you right drag like this. You get this drop field dialog box. And then you also get what you don't get on the right clicking. You get the blue ones and you get the green ones. So if you know that you're going to have continuous dates or date parts, you can then go in here and select any of these and you have it already in here. That works on dimensions and measures as well. If I right drag sales, you see a drop field and I get all the different aggregations in here. And then I'm looking at average sales, for example. So that's a quick tip. If I'm just going to make this to a label again. There's something that it's a bit weird, my laptop or the setup today, but I think we should be able to get some numbers in here. Just going to drag it away and see if I can get it. Yeah, that's because I have, I don't know why it's doing that, but let me just see. Yeah, these are beautiful numbers, right? Let's do this. Or I think that I'm just going to do this, change this to the other month. Then now I see some numbers. There's too many numbers. We can't get enough numbers, said the accountant every day with decimals. They love numbers and text tables. So now if I would like to change the size of my table, I can always try to find that sweet spot and drag it somewhere. But you also have the control and arrows. So you can increase and decrease the size like this. If you have the control shift plus B, you can increase the cells itself, or just control shift B there. You can increase and decrease the size. So that's a couple of ways of doing this change instead of dragging, because sometimes it's difficult to find. Then we have the swap columns and rows. So if I would like to have segment on columns and months on rows, I can of course drag twice, or I can just click this one or say Control W, then it swap columns and rows. That works with bar charts or any type of visualization as well. When you have multiple sheets like I do, you can do Control Tab to navigate through these, so Control Shift Tab to navigate back and forth. When you create a calculation, or if you have a calculation like this, and it's really tiny, so it's what is he doing in there? You can use the Control Plus to increase the size, and of course increase the size of the entire window as well. It's something I need to do when I build on my own, because it's easier to see, and it's easier also when you present something for other people. If you have those big data sources, I don't have too big. There's a whole bunch of actions in here. I'm just going to get rid of those. But if you, instead of trying to find that specific sheet, field, Control F, and then go for profit, then you will find it as well. So Control F is a quick one. This one I know I showed you before. Control E gets you this sheet description. So you see, you get an overview of what's on the shelves, what kind of dimensions, measures, if you have any filters, what tables are in use. Very good to copy paste into a documentation tool. And last time I also showed you a documentation tool by Marcelo Haas, where you can upload your TWB or TWBX, and it will give you an Excel sheet of all the different parameters, calculations, fields. And now also Anna Milana has made a new one, which is also quite fancy. It's a table calculation and lineage analyzer. My workbook is not very fancy because I don't have too much correlation in what I have in here. I'm just going to open up this web page because I forgot to add a URL action in here. I can also put it in the chat. Use it on your own or check with your IT if you're allowed to do this. But I have uploaded this. I did this yesterday. So this is the Southern Africa workbook. And you see then the lineage, where has the field profit been used in this calculation, or in this sheet as well. So it's quite helpful in getting a lineage in your workbook. So you can download this HTML. You can also download an Excel with all your field names, data type, if it's a default field, if it's a calculation, and which data source it's from. So it's a lifesaver in doing documentation, because that's so boring anyways. Of course, I didn't say that in the beginning, but I'm going to upload this workbook on Tableau Public after this starter workbook and the solution workbook, so you will have those. You can find those in my Tableau Public profile. Then I look at a couple of more tips in here, getting to the end. So if you would like to create a parameter now for this particular data, we'll see that we have data for month and year combination. If I right click on my order date, I could go and say create parameter. And then I would like to look at it custom. So I would like to look at it month, year. So January 21. But you see, I get a problem because my data is on a day-to-day level. I can't really do that because I can't get a duplicate parameter like this. So that doesn't work. So what I need to do first, right click on my order date. I can create my own custom date. If you haven't tried that before, you get this dialog box in here where you can then, of course, give it a name. Which details should you have it on? Years, quarters, months, all of this. I'm going to have it on months. And then you can either do date part. Those are the blue and discrete date part. So you can just January, February till December. Or we can do date value. Those are the green ones. You could do January 2021 till December 2025 or whatever date you have. So when I create this order date months, I have a new dimension over here. It's an equal sign because it's a calculation. And then I can go and create a parameter. Still have some issues in here if I do custom, or I could do year, month, month. But I'm not going to do range. I want to do all values that are, a list of all values that are available. And especially there's new data coming in every month. So I don't want to create a fixed parameter. I want to have a dynamic parameter. So I'm going to say a list of data from, just remember, EU Superstore and the new order date months. Now you see that I get all of these in here. Just make sure that it looks like this. November, January, etc. If I now say OK, I can show this parameter and I have the list in here. Of course, the parameter doesn't do anything until I connect it to a calculation or anything, but this is a quick way of fixing that one. Totals is something that I've seen a lot of people don't know about or struggle with sometimes. So it's fairly easy to go to analytics pane, go to totals and drag in subtotals, column, row, grand totals. And this is something that I didn't know. I was doing a training class, and I know that a lot of students are really impatient, so they do a lot of double clicking. And then I realized if you double click on totals, it will add all totals, all three of them, instead of just dragging one at a time, if you need all of them. But now it says grand total. I'm from Norway. We don't say grand total. We say total. Right click on it, format, and then you see that you can change the label to total or whatever you want. You can do that on all of these different levels as well. So subtotal, for example. So that's fairly easy to change these if you want to. And before I'm going to rename some nulls in here, you see that I have this formatted already with Norwegian kroner and 1 decimal. If I now realize I'm not going to have sum of profit in here, I'm going to have sum of sales, and I drag this one in to replace it. You see that I lost my formatting. There's no kroner, no decimals anymore. You know how to fix that or to hack it. If we double click on this one and we replace profit with sales, click enter, you keep the formatting. So you don't have to right click, format, do that adjustment. So that's a quick tip in there. And if you realize that it shouldn't be called segment, I could go here and rename it, of course, this dimension, but only in this particular visualization it should be called something else. If you double click on a dimension pill, you give this 2 forward slashes, which is the same as a comment. I can say Tore is king. I do a shift enter, so a hard line break. You see that you have Tore is king and you have segment. And then I'm replacing it only in this particular view. It's still called segment in the data pane. What if we do have nulls in here? So I have some data, some position, and I have sales costs that are missing. So if I right click on my value, my measure, I go to format. There's something called special values, for example, null. I can say data is coming. Then you see, even though this is a number, we will get data is coming. And then next week, we might get some sale cost. Hopefully, we're selling something. Then we will get, this will be replaced by a proper number. I do have a color, not null as well, so it's a true false. So you can also highlight this if you want to with a true false calculation. But what if you have dates that are null? I can't right click and edit the alias, as you can see. This is a trick that Kimberly Scott taught me. If you change this to a string, I can right click and edit my alias. I can call it no dates yet. So that's cool. But now date is a string and not a date. So now I'm going to change it back to date. And I lost my no dates yet. But you know what the hack is? You need to extract your data. Just going to extract the data set. And you have a date. And you have no dates yet. So if you have to have a live connection, this special trick doesn't work. Two more tips, and I think that should be able in 5 minutes. We are looking at some products. They have a rating from 1 till 5, and then I'm going to add in. This is something that that my co-presenter at some speed tipping sessions have created, Young Lee. I'm going to create a calculation and call it star rating. So instead of having just numbers, I would like to add in some stars. And to do that, I'm going to use this space function. Space function is basically how many spaces do you have based on this number. So if I drag the product rating in here, I'm also lazy. I don't want to write it, so I'm just going to drag it in. I'm going to say apply. And if I drag in star rating in here, we don't see too much at the moment. But it's giving me number of spaces as number of products we have in there. But now I would like to replace the spaces with these Unicode characters. I have these in the captions. I'm just going to copy these. So you can search for these on the internet, just Unicode character stars, for example. So now I need to add in a replace. And that's a trick as well. If you do replace like replace, you see that it's actually replacing my space function. So always remember to don't write a function in front of another function because it will replace it. So if I do replace in here, and I'm going to now replace in the space function, I'm going to replace the empty ones with a star. Let's see if this works. I'm going to say apply. Now I have 4 stars, 1 star, etc. That's pretty cool. But what if I also would like to fill, since the max rating is 5, I would like to make sure that if the rating is 5, it's going to be an empty star. We can do that. Then I'm just going to do a replace this. I have to remember if I did this. I'm just going to copy I need to keep this one. So I need to copy the replace. And then I'm going to use this empty star like this. And if I do this, it won't look too good because it's just adding the same ones in the end. So I need to make sure that I'm going to do 5 minus, because I'm going to do the ones that are not 5, meaning we have 5 and I'm going to only add 1 for this one, for example. So if I do this, I get a bit nicer rating than just adding these numbers. Final tip, if you have time for 2 minutes more, we're looking at this data. We have sales per country region, we have sales and profit. And by default, those are not synchronized. So we can compare these. We see this goes to 90,000, this one goes to 500,000. See that I've created a parameter that I'm switching between synchronized and not synchronized. This is something that some of my clients always want to have, because I would like to compare this to the actual values in here. So what have we done in here? I've kept this so you can see it. This one also has a reference line, but you can't see it. So I've created a, now we can find in data pane, this max value to sync. It's basically a calculation that's saying for each country region, this is my dimension, find the max of sales or profit. So when I do that, I add it to detail. I'm adding a reference line that is showing the, oh, sorry, I'm not adding, I'm going to edit the one that I had in there, sorry, this one. So I'm adding my sum max value to sync. It's going to be maximum, and I'm going to take away labels, formatting, everything, so you don't see it. So it's just hidden in the background. I haven't done it on this one just so you can see it. And then I'm creating a parameter that is saying either it's synchronized or not. And then if I filter by my calculations, I have a true false, because I'm going to use Syed's favorite dynamics zone visibility. If it's synced, then it's 2. If it's not synced, then it's 1. Going back to my workbook, you see that when it says sync show, synchronized, not synced. So basically in here, I have 2 sheets inside of the same workbook. So we can swap different different sheets in here as well. I made it. It's 10 o'clock. I didn't count, but I think there's plenty of tips in there.
Tor, yeah, massive thank you. We really appreciate you joining our Southern Africa user group. A lot of useful tips there. I must admit, I love that star rating calculation. I'm definitely going to use that, so thank you. Just to wrap up, really just to remind us the power of Tableau user communities. We want to be able to have a space to share our knowledge and develop our skills. We want to network, we want to problem solve together. So the more that we can share, the more that we all learn from each other. And then also career growth opportunities. I think each of us are at different levels in our Tableau journey and skill sets, and we all want to help each other grow in our careers. So this is the place to be. So just to re-emphasize that. And then lastly, I know we are out of time. Please, may I just ask you to quickly scan this with your phone. It should take you to a Microsoft form. There's just a couple of questions there. If you can fill that in, that'll be great. We are looking for future presenters and also topics that are interesting. I think, Tor, one of the things that stood out for me was the calculations, and maybe we need to have a separate session on calculations. So it'd be great to hear from everyone on the call, sort of what they're interested in and how we can help them. Great. Well, thank you, everybody. Andre, any closing remarks from your side?
No, just thank you again, Tor. Yeah, I was looking back. The first session was in May 2024. So, yeah, thank you again for joining us. I think, yeah, even though I'm not technical, there was some really cool stuff that you showed. So thanks for taking the time, and thanks everyone on the call for joining. Yeah, have a lovely, well, it's almost weekend, but yeah, have a lovely day.
Yeah, great. Let's make it an annual thing. I'll be back next year if you want me.
Yeah, definitely.
Have a nice day, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.